Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman, Merry Christmas. I know it's not Christmas yet, but man, I like to celebrate all month long. Merry Christmas to every one of you from us, the Liberty Roundtable Live team. We've got so much to cover, it's not even funny, so let's just jump right in. AmFest, America Fest, Turning Point USA's annual event happens in Phoenix in December. We were there, ladies and gentlemen. And it was crazy, folks. It was really, really, really good in many, many respects. There were about 31,000 people there. It's the greatest turnout they've ever had. Of course, it was a little bit sad because, of course, Charlie's not there, right? Everyone was sad about and lamented Charlie's premature passing. And everyone realizes that Charlie was a unifier. Charlie was a bring people together guy. Charlie was a, you know what? It's okay if we have different thoughts. It's okay if we have different beliefs. It's okay if we have extremely strongly held positions even. But please, let's talk. I'm going to pick up the mic. You can pick up the mic, and we can talk. We can work through this. We may not even agree in the end, but we can at least gain understanding and at least listen to one another. It was incredible. And when Charlie was there last year, that's what it was. Everybody felt like it was incredible. There was a lot of unity, and it was just tremendous, ladies and gentlemen. This year, though, the event, they say, reflected significant discord among conservative leaders in Phoenix. The New York Times wrote about it. Everybody basically is writing about it, and it's a sad day in many ways. So there were a lot of people who spoke out very boldly against one another. And it saddened me greatly. I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to point any fingers at anyone. I'm just going to say that there were several people who attacked other people and felt like their position is, more important or more correct or I'm right, you're wrong kind of mentality. And it really saddened me greatly. Because at a time when we should be focusing on who we are and what we are unified about, well, we missed an incredible opportunity right before Christmas even. Now, I'm reminded of World War II when they laid down their arms on both sides of the conflict, the Americans and the Germans, and they took a break for Christmas. And they actually sang Christmas carols together. It's a historical reality that's touched my soul for many years. And ladies and gentlemen, I bring this all up not because I want to point any fingers anywhere, but I want to tell you what I believe the star of the show was. I'll get to that in a second. But I want you to know that I had a great time at TPUSA. I learned a lot. I met great people, and I was very, very, very impressed with several aspects of the event. Number one, to get 31,000 people in the same venue with the same hopes and dreams and fears and challenges and concerns, and sad because Charlie's gone, but grateful because the organization still exists with some great leadership. All I'm telling you is that was really the sentiment, in my humble opinion, as I assessed the crowd. I talked to young people. I talked to old people. I talked to males. I talked to females. I talked to lots of people. And I'm telling you that everybody has a hope and a dream. And people's hopes and dreams, I pray, will bring us together. And so I digress a little bit, but this kind of puts the context on what I'm saying. I wrote an article back in 2015 called A Clarion Call for Civility. And it really talked about the divide in America over every fault line you could find. Callforcivility.com. if you want to read that article. Back in 2015, I wrote that. And I wrote that after I had been worried about this for, even a couple of years before that. But since that article, I have seen increased divisions, not only in America, but around the world since. People doubling down on their view, doubling down on their opinion, on their recommendations, on their solutions, on their ideas. And everybody seems to want to talk over the next guy or gal. Everyone seems to want to get the upper hand or somehow use it to gain followers or whatever the case may be. And that's where I'm so sad, because I believe that America is greater than that. The world, full of God's children, should be above that. It's been said that we should seek to understand before we seek to be understood. And I really believe that's important, folks. It's vitally important to do that. Because if somebody is going to consider my ideas, it's important that I listen to them first, that I let them explain their point of view. And maybe if I listen, and I listen with an open, kind, respectful heart, then I might learn something. I might say, I didn't think of that. I might say, I don't agree with that, but I see what you're saying. I understand at least. And that's what we seek for. So after I wrote that article in 2015, I've been really promoting this. I couldn't get hardly anybody to publish the article back in the day, but I put the article up on Clarion Call for Civility. It's just callforcivility.com. And that article, and then I basically wrote a kind of a mission statement, you might call it. And turn it into a pledge. Will you take the pledge for the call for civility? And many people have taken that pledge, and I commend them for it. And I've taken the pledge, and I'm far from perfect at it. Because remember, we grew up in this environment where it was common. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that, I was guilty. I would, slam whoever I thought was out of line or wrong. Well, the fact is, I was wrong. Not maybe even wrong on some of the points that I believed, but wrong on my desire to shut somebody else down, on my desire to be right and prove them wrong, and we need to realize, when is it an argument versus when is it a debate? Arguments are not helpful. Debates are very helpful if done right. You articulate your side, you listen to the other side, you bring up pros and cons, you help people really understand the issue, you help people kind of make up their own mind of what they think and why. Charlie was brilliant at this. It was one of his superpowers, you might say. And he brought so many people together. And without him, it seems like we're starting to lose some of that mojo. And it is so sad to me that that is the case. So I believe my Clarion Call for Civility is important. There's an article there that I wrote literally 10 years ago plus. And there is a pledge that you can take there. Well, set that aside for a second. After Charlie was assassinated, I upgraded that Clarion Call, or Call for Civility, to Campaign for Civility. And the Campaign for Civility that I'm working on now is an effort to possibly speak around the country and bring fellow like-minded speakers around the country that could really, hopefully, bring a civil element to our dialogue. Something that existed in 2024 at the Turning Point USA America First, or AmFirst festival event, that seemed to be there in many cases in 2025, just a couple of days ago that I attended, but seemed to be lacking in certain cases as well. But I don't even want to focus on the divisions. They all existed. Everybody's reporting about it, and everybody's going to give you their take. They're just going to create another round of highlighting and focusing on, and if we're not very careful, greater polarization. My prayers are that does not happen. I know our enemies, the great enemy of us all, would love to see that. I, on the other hand, would like to stand for civility, for respect, for kindness. And I stood there for an hour straight. My legs were killing me. I had been standing so long. But Erika Kirk spoke. It was called Prove Me Wrong. And she took questions. And she started ahead of time, and she said, hey, let's not make this hardcore political. Let's talk about basically how we're human, basically how we all really want the same things. People want to be happy, safe, well-fed, cold. When it's hot, they want to be cooled down. Hot or warm when it's cold, they want to be warmed up. People want food, they want shelter, they want clothing, they want the ability to be safe and take care of themselves. Everybody really wants, the human race, all of God's children really wants the same thing. And so she said, let's just talk about our lives and who we are. And there were a lot of great questions from chapter leaders and young people that really impressed me. The details of their questions were really inspiring to a great degree because they talked about who they were as people, what their concerns were in life, what their struggles were. And I think it's important that we listen to that younger generation. Well, Erika Kirk did a phenomenal job at that. She started the conference with a lot of great, kind words and said what our goals are. And then she spoke at this thing where I just stood there and listened to her. And her comments were so kind, so gentle, so accepting, so, in my opinion, visionary in that she gave young people direction for their lives on a variety of incredible topics. Hey, what makeup should I wear? How should I look good? And what do you think of pageants? What do you think of, and every answer that she gave, in my opinion, was kind, was respectful, and was truly God, family, and country oriented. For example, with the pageants, there's a division in the pageants some years ago. And some people wanted the women to wear more revealing bikinis. And other groups said, no, we don't want to do that. And that's why there's kind of a primary division. I'm sure it goes deeper than that, but that was the general understanding that I gained. And her point was, listen, I'm not picking sides in the pageants, but I will say that I was disappointed, she said, that, it's more revealing. I don't want it to just be about a woman's body or how sexy she looks or whatever. I want it to be about the whole woman, about that she's articulate, that she's kind, that she serves others, that she sets an example. We're talking about the whole woman, her brain, her mind, her soul, her heart, her status as a daughter of Almighty God. I want the pageants to be about that. And so she, in my opinion, took the opportunity to not talk about the divide, not pick sides in the divide, and not even spend time on the division, as much as to say, hey, I would like the pageants to become more moral. Look at the woman as a woman, not just as a, sex object or a physical attraction thing or a whatever, but to look at a woman as, she's a great musician. She's worked at her life and developed these talents. She uses these talents to serve God, to serve those around her, to make the world a better place. And that's where she focused. And it was so, in my opinion, inspiring. She talked about family. And she talked to these young people about their lives. Hey, when you've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, treat them as a boyfriend or a girlfriend. That means you learn about one another. You ask questions about one another. You learn about what each other's likes and dislikes are, and your goal is to find out if you're compatible. But don't go further than boyfriend-girlfriend status. She kind of mentioned that, hey, if you guys give up everything somebody wants, eventually they won't want you. They'll have everything. Hold those sacred things back. Don't let the relationship, quote, get ahead of itself, is the term I would use for it. And then she said, when you're a fiance, be a fiance. Let that, introduce this person to your family. They've met your standards, and now let's see if they fit into the family well. And so be a boyfriend, girlfriend when you're that. Be fiancés when you're that. And then when you're married, leave those sacred things for marriage. If you do, you will be blessed and grateful. And everything she talked about, she pointed to God. And she pointed to that we can mentor one another. We can serve one another. And in my opinion, some girls asked her about, how do you make your skin look so good? How do you so beautiful? And she then really quickly said, hey, you know what? Wash your face, keep yourself clean, live right, eat right, take care of your health, get plenty of sleep. She talked about that a little bit in some general ways. She didn't talk about any products she used or anything like that. But then she quickly pivoted towards the inside, saying, if you want a great spouse, if you're a woman and you want a Charlie Kirk for a husband, you got to be somebody worthy of Charlie Kirk for a husband. Now, she didn't put it like this, but I will. If you want a Charlie Kirk, you got to be an Erika Kirk. If you want Erika Kirk, you've got to be a Charlie Kirk. Now, I know they're just people too, and we don't mean to put them too much on a pedestal. They're humans, and they make mistakes, and hey, I'm not saying they're perfect, but she pointed people in the right directions, in my opinion. She really did. And I left thinking, you know what? I believe Erika Kirk is a hero. And I know if we're not very careful, any one of us can fall. We've got to stand together and support and love one another to where nobody falls. Nobody falls. And that's going to take a lot of work. Anyway, her speeches were very, very impressive to me. I was also really incredibly proud of and appreciative of Riley Gaines. She came and spoke and did a phenomenal job as well. Anyway, I don't want to get too into the weeds on all the different speeches, but I had a wonderful time at the event. I am so sad that we've had some divisions, and I am so sad that now some in the media might be making that divide even more pronounced. I hope to be the guy that points the way like Erika Kirk has done when she first spoke at Charlie's funeral. And she said, I forgive them. I forgive that man. Because I believe forgiveness is where we can start to heal. I believe if we forgive one another as we want to be forgiven, if we set down our judgment instead of justice for everyone, we leave that up to God and we say, mercy is my calling card. I want to be the guy that extends mercy to all of God's children around me the best I can. And then I want to point people to God, to family, and to country in a very meaningful way. And I believe my Clarion Call for Civility now turned to Campaign for Civility. You can also go to campaignforcivility.com. And I would really like to raise money and speak around the country about that. There's people that are lonely in America. Let's make sure they have friends and loved ones. Let's be their family. Turning Point USA can be a huge family of support for one another. This world's tough enough in our own personal lives with physical and or mental health difficulties, with concerns about looks for young women, with concerns about how to find a wife or how to find a husband for these young people, to how to behave in certain circumstances. They need mentors. They need love. They need examples. They need kindness. They need acceptance. And it is my prayer that we can all work together. Everyone wants to belong. Everyone wants to feel part of something bigger than themselves. Everyone needs a purpose-driven life, to borrow a phrase. And the way we give them that personal purpose in life is we teach them to turn to God Almighty in prayer. On your knees, find out God's will for you, and then get about it with reckless abandon. And I don't mean reckless like wild. I mean, you're just all in on it. You're willing to truly double down, triple down, quadruple down in favor of the things that we all agree on. Because America and the world really agrees on most things. Most of us do, at least, which is, like I said, we want to belong. We don't want to feel lonely. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We want to feel accepted. And we want to feel like we make a difference in the world. We want shelter. We want food. We want clothing. We want the fuel that it takes to stay warm or cold, or, we want to temper the elements in our favor. And then we, in my humble opinion, we really all want to make a difference. We want to bless other people's lives. I think most people feel that way around the world, regardless of language, regardless of customs, regardless of opinions. Set all that aside. And my quest for you in this incredible Christmas season, and for me, because I'm part of you. I'm just an American with an opinion as well. But I hope we go beyond opinions. I hope we stand with principle. And principle is love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, might, mind, and strength, and love thy neighbor as thyself. The two great commandments, that's what really is through all 10 commandments. The first 5 towards God and the second 5 towards your neighbor or your fellow man. And I would like us to start there. And even if you're not a Christian, even if you don't believe in the 10 commandments, believe in the principles that the 10 commandments embody. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Those are things that I think any civilized society should be able to agree on. I'll give you an example. There was a man who spoke there who isn't Christian at all. But he believes in the same principles that I'm speaking about. And you can. And if you're Christian or not, because we have a great nation built on these principles, everyone can express their thoughts and their opinions. Everyone can believe in God Almighty in their own ways and have their own theology and have their own beliefs and opinions and ideas, and each one should be respected. So I had a great time at TPUSA. I think Charlie Kirk and Riley Gaines gave some of the best, peaceful, unifying speeches of the conference. And I know I said I wasn't going to mention names. I'm not going to mention names of anybody who were dividing or who could be divided or whatever else. I do want to mention names of who I believe pointed to true north, if you will. And I hope to point you to true north as well. I don't have an agenda. I don't have fame or fortune. I don't want big hits on media. I'm not asking for any money right now in terms of, except for, hey, if you want to support the show, I'm grateful. But I'm not interested. I don't have any external factor driving my comments. I just believe that as God's children, we can be more kind, more gentle, more patient, more forgiving, more loving. We can set an example by our behavior. I can't control what went down at this event and who says what, but I can make sure that I'm not going to make comments to add fuel to that fire. And I pray that I'm not. I'm doing my very, very best not to. And I hope that we can take a page from the playbook of those who are truly advocating for what matters the most. It is all about God. It is about family, and it is about liberty. It is about country in America because it was an America First conference. That doesn't mean harm to any other countries or that we want any other countries to be bad. Every country should have their country first in their minds and say, I want to make sure that my local environment is safe and embodies the principles of freedom used wisely, called liberty. And everybody should want that. And the only reason that you want your country first is because if you have an environment in which you can advocate for these sacred causes, then you can share it with others. And so everybody should want their environment. I can't help anybody with food unless I'm fed. Pretty soon I'll be so hungry I'm not able to help others. So it's not about putting everybody else second. But the first thing they say if you're in a plane crash is, hey, the masks are going to come down from the ceiling. And when they do, put yours on before you help somebody else. It's not that they don't want you to help others. And it's not a selfish statement. It's a statement of survival. It's a statement to say, hey, if I put my oxygen on and now I can breathe normally because I've got now I can help plenty of people. So I pray that this segment on Liberty Roundtable Live can unify, can have us all take a step back and wish everyone a Merry Christmas and truly mean it. Merry Christmas means look to Christ. Merry Christmas means love the Lord thy God and love thy neighbors as thyself. Merry Christmas means we're going to be kind and loving and in our behavior and our actions. We're going to receive the great gift of the Savior Jesus Christ and do our very best to mirror that in our own lives and our interactions with everyone else. All right, I'm Sam Bushman. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live. All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. So I enjoyed the America First, or AmFest, TPUSA conference. It was very good, in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. I really did. There was so many people there. It was shocking, though, I might say. But there was so many great things that happened there. I've never seen so many people in a room for the sacred cause of liberty. I've been at this for 30 plus years, folks. And I have never seen 31,000 people in the same place who generally want the same thing, which is they want conservative values to be in society. They want to focus on God, family, and country. They really do. I believe everybody there wanted that. There were a lot of different booths that were great to see. There were a lot of interesting, unique products and services. There were also some great people doing great work with their own organizations. I saw some stuff related to education that was tremendous. I met a group that, for example, they say, hey, you know, you don't need a college education. You can do an internship or you can do an apprenticeship and you can, you know, really do very well doing that. And I felt like that was worthy. That was valuable. And so there was just so much there to like. And I think about that conference, and I can find things that I felt should be different. I could find things that I felt ought to go this way or that way. But I'm not even going to bring them up. Because, again, all that does is put Sam's opinion, and then somebody else says, oh, I don't think so, or whatever. I'm just telling you that it was not only so many people in the same place at a time. I've never, ever seen even close to that many people. The biggest events I've ever been to maybe have 5,000 or 10,000 people to them. And this thing had literally 31,000 attendees. The other interesting thing that I noticed about it is not only were there so many people there, but I've never seen so many young people. Usually these freedom conferences that I go to, you know, it's mid-age or middle-aged people or older people kind of stuff, and the young just doesn't appear. This had more young people than old people at it. Many of them were high school students. Many of them were college students. And the people that were asking questions were literally people that were involved, engaged in very productive ways. They run a chapter for TPUSA, or they're involved in this on their own college campuses, or they're involved in this or that. Everybody there, as far as I could tell, was taking action in some way. They weren't just spectators. It wasn't like a spectator sport. They were actively engaged and involved in making a difference in their local communities. And the reason they were there at TPUSA was because they wanted to learn, get guidance, receive mentoring, gain understanding, gain context, make friends and associates in an effort to do better and to do more at their current engagement or involvement in their local areas. It was something to behold. It really was. There were a lot of times where we laughed. There were a lot of times that we cried. Not only was it the most amount of people I've ever seen gathered together for liberty in my entire life, not only was there young people there, like I've never seen before, but there were families there. There were children there. And no one minded when the children ran around, and no one minded when the children made noise. Nobody cared. We just had a phenomenal time together. It was so crowded that I'd bump into people. And before I could even say I'm sorry to bump into somebody, they were apologizing to me. If it wasn't even somebody's fault, they were like, oh, I'm so sorry. And everybody was cordial and polite and everything else. They even, this is really impressive to me, they even had a talk show that was on the air, like a news show, in the media area, media row. And on that talk show, they literally took microphones out to the protesters. There were a lot of protesters, and they had masks, and they were doing their thing. And I'm not going to be critical of that either. And they said to the protesters, hey, we've got cameras and microphones out here, but you're broadcasted live in the TPUSA conference and would like to hear what you have to say. And they actually let the protesters make some comments and have some input. That is Charlie Kirk-esque, ladies and gentlemen. That impresses me. Because, again, we're not just hating on the protesters, sending the cops after the protesters. We're saying, hey, we'd like to hear what your issues are. And there were several different issues that I won't even get into, except to say that even they had a voice at this conference. I've never seen anything like that before. And I was really impressed with it. But most importantly, or I should say most important of all, what I was impressed with. I have seen a lot of Liberty conferences, and they talk a lot about the country, a lot about the Constitution, a lot about the Declaration of Independence. They talk a lot about the Founding Fathers, all wonderful things. Don't misunderstand me in any way. But rarely do I hear an element of God and Jesus Christ focused on like I saw at Turning Point. They are turning people to God, folks. They really are. And they had people that were speakers that don't believe in the Christian God or as we do, Christianity. They're of different religions. And they let them speak and have their say. But every one of them looked to God. I have never seen God mentioned so much in appropriate ways, I might add. Not in any derogatory ways, but in appropriate ways. That he's the author of our liberty. That only he can bring us comfort and strength. Only he can heal us. Only he can help us change and do better. You know, they're calling the turning point the change. The turning point is kind of a repentance. I'm going to turn and repent. The turning point, brilliant name by Charlie. But I've never heard so many people from different belief systems. It reminds me a lot of the Founding Fathers. You know, I might have my theological viewpoints. You might have your theological viewpoints, and they may be different. It's okay. We don't need to focus on that. Let's focus on that we both agree that God and family and America first is the answer for Americans. God, family, and the Philippines first, if you're Filipino, or Mexico first, or Japan first, whatever it be, China first, if you're those countries. And then you can say what principles can make China be great. I'd like all countries to be great again. What principles can make China great again? And then you go back to these God and family type principles. You go back to the principles of the proper role of limited constitutional government. The Constitution should be the political religion of our nation. The Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, should be exported to all countries for free. We'll give you a copy. It's our greatest export. Because America, at least historically, has turned people to God. And I saw more of that at the TPUSA conference than I have ever seen at any other conference in my entire life. And it was impressive. It gave me hope in America. I'm a pretty jaded guy about America and about what's going on because I've seen it for years and decades where it's just like everything you try to do falls apart and one thing that gets rolling and you think it's good and then boom, this happens or that happens or whatever. I mean, I remember being really excited about the Republican Revolution back in the 95 and 6 kind of range. And I remember thinking, okay, we're going to finally, and then that fell apart. And I think we need to keep our eyes on the ball, which means look to God first. And I've never seen more people focus on, speak about, highlight God's miracles in their lives. They talked about miracles. Many of the speakers talked about personal miracles. Well, what's her name? Danica Kilpatrick, I think is. Anyway, she's the race car driver. I don't know if I ever named her last name right. But anyway, she spoke of having a personal vision that changed her life. God can speak to us, folks. And he can give us the guidance we need to make a difference, not only in our own lives, but in the lives of our family members, our neighbors, our loved ones, many of us who might have greater influence nationwide. And they talked about that. The people were in tears when they talked about their personal lives and their relationships to God. They were in tears when they talked about people who pointed them to true north. What is true north? In my mind, true north is this God, family, country idea. True north is this idea of what's going to save us all. It's not going to be politics. It's not going to be Washington. It's not going to be, and when you come down to earth and you're on the earth, your goal is to learn to choose Christ. Choose God. And they highlighted this so much. And then the question is, when you talk about family, family are the companions and the people around you that God gave you. You can help them. They can help you to be your best self, to be all you can be, to make a difference. Those, in my opinion, are the things that really were is the word typification, is that the right word? The highlights of the conference is that, man, 31,000 people who believe in God, who want to have a turning point in their lives or who have had turning points in their lives, who say, I want to be a better person. I want to make a difference. I want to get involved. I seek for a change. And that doesn't mean an empty idea of change, or it was very clear about what the change is. The change is to turn to God. The change is to love your fellow man. The change is to serve one another, reserve judgment, and realize we've got way more in common, big time, than ever divides us. When we get back, Dr. Scott Bradley will be with me. freedomsrisingsun.com is website. We'll do it in just seconds. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live. Gotta dig it. I just got back from the Turning Point USA Conference, AmFest, America First. Incredible conference in many ways. I beg you, my fellow Americans, set aside all the news articles talking about any divisions. They existed. I'm not overlooking them or pretending they're not true. They exist. But how do we best solve them? How do we best get rid of them? How do we best go beyond them? That's really the question. Dr. Bradley, welcome, sir. Anyway, any thoughts on TPUSA? I know you probably read about it already, right?
I have not read anything about it. I watched a little bit of it, but not much. I didn't get your broadcast before this point, and so I don't want to walk on anything that may have been said or done. I still think there's a wrestling match going on, from what I was able to observe, to see who's going to get in the head of this parade. And it could go a couple of different directions still, based upon what I saw. I mean, not a couple. It could go. It could be fragmented.
It could go
a whole
several.
Bunch of different.
You're right about that, Doctor.
And I'm a little concerned that I have just seen so many good movements that have kind of folded because of competing agendas, and I worry that some of the competing agendas could really take this off on the same path that some of the ones that, you looked at 9/11, 2001, and all this patriotism that came out of it, and all this kind of good stuff that people suddenly got patriotic, and there were so many that wanted to be the drum majorette, or whatever the heck they call the person with the marches in front of the band, but. And they have just basically folded. And I've seen where, been around enough years where I've seen a lot of good, solidly founded organizations that end up, when their founder dies, there's a power struggle, there's a fragmentation, there's a splitting, and that's kind of the way Satan works. That's the way Marx worked. That's the way his program was, to divide and conquer, and this conflict-based kind of movement. And there may be people that put a happy face on it, and everybody's smiling, but there's fangs behind the smile, and there's maybe an iron fist behind the silk glove. I don't know. I didn't watch enough of it to completely.
All right. Well, there were several things that went on, and I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree. This could happen very easily, and my prayers are, and my efforts are, that does not happen. Like I say, I've never seen a movement so focused on God like these people were, so focused on family like these people were, so focused on the younger generations, the future, if you will, ever. And I believe that even though there was some divisions. Erika Kirk, the CEO of the organization now, and Charlie said that he wanted his wife to take over if their need ever arose. Now, I don't know why he would say such a thing. Maybe he had some inklings that something might happen. I'm not sure. But I'm telling you that there's a lot of people that were involved with Charlie Kirk, and Erika is one of them. And her forgiveness example at his funeral, and her speeches that I watched at TPUSA, and her interviews that I've seen since, she is focusing on the right things, in my humble opinion. I'm not putting her on a greater than just an American and a woman, pedestal. She's just still a human. But I'm really pleased with what she's done and what she's focused on. Now, there are people around Erika that I believe are good, honest people. I really do. I've heard them. I've heard them speak, I've heard them joke, I've heard them laugh, and I've heard what they say, and I've heard them take complicated questions And they respond in very, in my opinion, appropriate ways. So understand there's the insiders that run the organization. And then there's people that they've had come in and speak. Okay? And I don't speak for them in any way. I love Turning Point. I would like to be involved more in Turning Point. I will help them all that I possibly can. But I do not speak for Turning Point or anybody else. And all I'm telling you is the people around Erika. I don't know how to say his name. Jack Posabek, is that how you say it? He's been a longtime co-host. And I really like what Jack's had to say. In my opinion, he worked on unifying the people. Tyler Boyer, or however you say his name. Again, same kind of a thing. These are recurring panel members on the Thought Crime program that Charlie was involved in. Blake Neff, part of the core. Andy Calvert, or Andrew. A lot of people around that have done a tremendous job. And I'm really pleased. So I understand what Dr. Scott Bradley's saying. He's very, very right. This could indeed be a serious problem in the beginning of the fractures. My prayers are not. But what's different about this, doctor, that I at least think so far, what was different about the American Revolution versus the French Revolution and others? The answer is it was a focus on God. It was a realization that without God, we'll get nowhere. And with God, we can do all things. This conference had that element to it. And so my prayer, the core can go on, and those who really want to divide, or those who have an agenda, or those who might have other things in mind, hopefully they will, either one, have a turning point in their lives and change and repent, or two, they can go their own way. And anyway, so I noticed that there was a real element on God and on serving others and on family. I've been to a lot of conferences in my day, doctor, and I've never seen so many people together in one room that believed in God first. That, I'm hoping, makes the difference, doctor.
Well, I absolutely have those wishes also. But just temper it with our own discerning spirit on things. Let's look and say, the people in Nazi Germany were praying to the same God the people in America were praying to. I mean, they had a lot of Lutherans there that thought God was on their side, and so I guess the Brits with their Anglican religion in the Revolutionary War prayed to God. Yeah, I admit that the Revolutionary War had a really different temper than the French Revolution, but if people try to co-opt God into their camp, if you will, they can also be a great force for the wrong things. And if in fact this is
your point is people have used religion for wrongful purposes too. In the name of religion, many things have been done that have been wrong. I concur 100%. However, if we're going to be saved, it's only going to be by God. It's not going to be by Washington. It's not going to be by my opinion or yours or anybody else's. It's going to be based on the principles that God has set forth.
No question about that. And I guess, when it comes to this nation, we do have a pretty good template. Pretty good. I understate a lot of things, right?
An incredible template.
And so here we have the foundational principles, and this idea that extra constitutional things are okay if you do it in the name of God is not right. And we will overthrow this nation as fast that way if you're doing it for a God that's different than the Sharia God. But the fact is we cannot use false principles to take and I look, for example, one of the big challenges I think we're going to find is the effort to shoehorn TPUSA into a organization that sometimes puts Israel in front of the United States. I mean, I'm going to just outright say it. And I think that was a division point that still needs to be fully addressed, because if in fact another nation is placed and we become subservient to that nation, go back and read the farewell address, for crying out loud, people. We become slaves to the other nation. And I hope and pray that there's not such a Schofield.
You're talking about George Washington's farewell address, right?
George Washington's farewell address. And Andy Jackson's for that matter. I mean, these guys,
Sure.
they were pretty wise guys, smart, I don't know, wise guys. That's maybe a good term. I don't know. But at any rate, the
That's right.
fact of the matter is that that if we get to the point that we are doing extra constitutional wars, and it's okay because we support our troops. I mean, I'm just taking a
Right.
few
No,
little
you're
fragments
right.
out there.
And the point that you're making is this: hey, we're not downing Israel in that statement. We're just merely saying that America first means that we make sure we're on a solid footing, based on principle, to set an example for the whole world. We need to be a light on a hill. And that doesn't start with putting other countries first. That doesn't start with, debating about this or that or the constitutionality of. We need to follow godly principles, and we need to follow the principles of the Constitution. That's why I say the Constitution should be the political religion of our nation. We've got to stick with those things: God, family, and country. When it comes to God, it's a relationship with Him, and it's the Bible. When it comes to family, it's God-ordained family principles. When it comes to the country, it's the Constitution, the separation of powers, not seeking for power, seeking to pull it down. And I pray that TPUSA can stand on those principles. You're right. We've got a big question in front of us. Will they? And I can only pray so and advocate for such.
Sam, as I just while you were, oh, we got to take another break, man. Oh, it's the end of the hour. Can you imagine? Maybe we can start off with Thomas Jefferson in this godly heritage kind of thing.
Just as Roger that. We'll do it. Great idea. Dr. Bradley's with me, ladies and gentlemen. freedomsrisingsun.com is his website. He wrote a book called To Preserve the Nation. It's not only a book, it's a collegiate DVD and book series where you can hear lectures on some of these principles. I believe we need to stick with godly principles, and if we do, there's no stopping. Anybody who embraces true godly principles, that's something we need to advocate for and pray for with all of our might. I'm Sam Bushman. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live. We are syndicated by the Loving Liberty Networks. Spread the word, lovingliberty.net. God save the Republic of the United States of America.